All right, welcome everyone to the League of Extraordinary People's first event. We are here today for a health and wellness town hall about how adverse childhood experiences impact the Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other communities of color. My name is Melissa McFeeters, and I will be moderating our time here today. The town hall is going to be led by our founder, Alfred White. After nearly 40 years experiencing homelessness, Alfred swallowed a quarter ounce of crack cocaine in 2004 and nearly died. He awoke paralyzed, and that is when he made the decision to seek help for his history of addiction. Alfred has since received his master's degree and has dedicated his life to helping others heal. Alfred's past adverse childhood experiences now manifest in his body as several chronic health conditions, including liver cancer, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and irritable bowel syndrome. He is a subject matter expert and a licensed mental health therapist. Thank you all for joining us to hear from Alfred today. And we want to also invite you to check in the chat box with your location so we can get a sense of where people are today, what your time zones are. Might be early afternoon for you or in the evening. So hopefully you've had a chance to eat some lunch and have some dinner. And we'll go ahead and get started in just a moment. Our first hour together will be primarily hearing from Alfred. And then the last 30 minutes will really allow us to dialogue with one another together. And as I mentioned before, we are recording the town hall, so please be aware of that. And then before we start, we do want to get an idea of who's in the audience today. So I'm going to open up a poll that you can also go ahead and respond to. If you don't want to share this information, you can just click the X and close it out, and that's totally fine. So we'll keep this up just for about a minute here, and for the first question about how you identify your race and ethnicity, it is multiple choice, and so you can choose multiple options if they apply to you. And then the second question is regarding your age range, so we can get an idea of kind of our audience here today. Awesome, and it looks like we've got folks from all over the place, some here in Washington State, and then also into California, Arizona, Canada, Tennessee. So hopefully we have some good information here for you today, wherever you're checking in from. All right, we just have a few folks that haven't voted yet for the poll, what applies to them. But like I said, if you don't feel interested in doing that, that's totally fine. We'll give it about 10 more seconds here. All right. And you should see the poll results on your screen. So it looks like for our audience, we do have a variety of people checking in. So we have 16% who identify as Latino, Latina, or Latinx, 13% as Black or African American, 3% Indigenous, and then 13% Asian, and 63% white. And for our age range, it looks like we've got a majority of 50 to 60-year-old age range, and then also 35 to 39, but a very wide variety. All of our categories represented except for youth under 18. So that's really great to see. Okay. And it looks like some folks are still checking in the chat with their location. Perfect. All right, we're going to start out with a land acknowledgement here. We do recognize that our work takes place upon the lands of the Coast Salish tribes, particularly that of the Puyallup tribe here in Washington State. And so operating out of the greater Seattle area, we do want to acknowledge the people who have been on the land before us originally. And so to use the information from their website, they share the following about their tribe. In the old days, in their original language, their name meant generous and welcoming behavior to all people, friends and strangers who enter our lands. They go on to describe that today they are known as the Puyallup tribe of Indians. And it says, our people lived here for thousands of years, existing by the bountiful gifts provided by the Creator. Our mother, Mount Tacoma, provided the water that supplied our salmon. We were fed by the abundance of nature's gifts: salmon, shellfish, wild game, roots, and berries. The cedar trees provided our homes, utensils, clothing, and transportation. All of these gifts are part of our rich cultural history, our rich cultural heritage we have today. Our environment was rich in the wealth of natural resources, providing all our needs, allowing us to live happy and healthy lives. There were no worries of where the next meal would come from, no rents to pay. There was the freedom to practice our religion, train our children, take care of our elders. We are part of the Salish-speaking people of the Pacific Northwest. Our particular dialect is called the Lushootseed. Our relatives in the neighboring tribes all spoke the same stock language, but many had different dialects. Many were intimately related by marriage, and we were connected by common religion, observances, myths, and traditions. And so with that, we do want to just take a moment to honor that we do work and operate on the lands of the Puyallup tribe, even though we are virtual today. And if where you live, you aren't familiar with the Indigenous people or First Nation people who may have been there previously, we do encourage you to look into that and learn more about those who are in your area. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Alfred now to get us started. Alfred, are you on with us?
Yes, how you doing?
Perfect, I'm doing well, Alfred. How are you doing this afternoon?
Good, good, good. So the League of Extraordinary People mission and vision statement. Our mission is to launch an educational and spiritual enrichment revolution to build hope, resilience, and healing through community empowerment. Can everybody hear me out there okay? Thumbs up?
Yep.
Okay. Our vision is to establish a transformational, integrative, and replicable self-healing center of extraordinary people. This residential community model will heal transgenerational trauma through a foundation of safety, trustworthiness, and transparency, peer support, collaboration, and mutuality, empowerment of voice and choice, and purposefully elevating historical, ethnic, and cultural legacies.
Perfect. Thank you, Alfred, for sharing about our mission and vision. And the next two slides, I'm going to sort of give us a preface, and then Alfred's really going to dive into sharing how this is manifested in his life, and specifically about adverse community environments and adverse childhood experiences. This is a visual created from building community resilience. And it really takes the idea of adverse childhood experiences, which originated, and Alfred's going to go into this some more too, with a study in the 90s. And really the experiences in this analogy of the tree are things that are observable above the ground and above the roots. And so those can be maternal depression, emotional and sexual abuse, substance abuse, domestic violence, physical and emotional neglect, divorce, mental illness, incarceration, and homelessness. And with our tree analogy, those childhood experiences that may be traumatic for children are rooted in adverse community environments. So this is adding another layer to the adversity and the trauma that children can face. And so some examples are poverty, discrimination, community disruption, lack of opportunity, economic mobility, and social capital, poor housing quality and affordability, and violence. And so we'll toggle between this slide and the next slide, which depicts how a caregiver's traumatic experiences can impact a child's development, even starting within the womb. Alfred, do you want to take it from here?
Yes, my name is Alfred White, and this is kind of a bio kind of class for you guys. In actuality, this is the elephant in the room of our homelessness and our Black Lives Matter movement. Because in actuality, can you switch back, Melissa? Melissa, can you hear me? Can you? Okay, there you go. Thank you. So in actuality, you guys, what happened in my childhood was my mom had maternal depression. Switch back. from the early development when the caregiver was experiencing traumatic experience. The traumatic experience that she had was my dad. And so what happens is when you're early in marriage, we look at the bottom of our trees and we see poverty, discrimination, community disruption, lack of opportunity and economic mobility and social capital, poor housing quality and affordability and violence. And so if anybody's ever read the book, The Four Agreements, when they talk about domestication, the dream of the planet, the adverse community environments is the domestication. And so that's the dream of the planet. So everybody that's growing up that's Black or a minority or brown, poverty. So what does that look like in today's world today? Well, look at the living wage. How many people in here really need a better wage? And then we look at discrimination. Look at the application. What are all the earmarks on the application that cause community disruption? And then the lack of opportunity and economic mobility and social capital. How are you going to feed your family? How are you going to pay rent? What's going on in 1918 and 1920 is still the same thing that's going on today. We have poor housing, quality, affordability, violence, and then look at nutrition. Look at the food that we feed our people. So when we look at COVID-19, and I see some people smiling out in the audience, you know, I see COVID-19 and the reason why we're so disadvantaged at COVID-19, we haven't been getting appropriate nutrition. A lot of Blacks and minorities were born in America. We wasn't raised in America. So therefore, so a tree without roots, how are we going to have any kind of fruits today? And so the biggest thing here is empowerment and education. How are you going to keep causing people to go to treatment and they never had enough information in the first place to even understand how to not be in treatment? And then what about their moms and dads? We put too much on parents today. They were doing way too much. So a lot of the initial things that happened during our childhood actually happened before we was 5 years old. I don't know if a lot of you guys know it or not, but 90% of a child's brain develops before the age of 5. Experiences, ACEs can affect that development. It was 5 years old when I walked out on my mom in Holly Park when I was in the bathtub with my little brother and see my mom laying on the floor with blood coming out of her head because she had got busted in the head with a Thunderbird bottle by this guy she was seeing that ended up being my stepfather. So that pretty much can tell you the reason why I left home when I was 13. And so a lot of times that before the age of 5, the damage is done because from the age of 1 and 2, if there's not no serve in return, then what happens is the mother releases the cortisol and the baby absorbs the cortisol through the placenta. So prior to the baby even coming out, this has impacted the baby's HPA axis, which is the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenaline glands. And this impacts our central nervous system, which furthermore impacts our limbic system, our amygdala, our hippocampus, and our thalamus. And then it also impacts our autonomic nervous system, which is in control of our HPA axis because it's the parasympathetic and sympathetic. So a lot of you guys don't know, but we're actually in hyperarousal when we're born out of the womb. So prior to us even getting into childhood as a child, as a baby, so that's what we're talking about prenatal care. Prenatal care includes parenting. Prenatal care includes looking for things that can be endocrine disruptors. These are toxins that we use in our house. So there was a long time ago, Johnson & Johnson had some baby powder. We take too many things for granted in America today, you guys. This is a learning experience and a learning opportunity. And so the table was already set in America for Black and Indigenous people. Slavery has not succeeded today. When you look at all the stuff that we spend our money on, we spend more money on stuff than we do on living. We're just existing. We don't even know that. And so the caregiver with traumatic experience, that's our moms. That's the women in the room. You see the reason why we have so much violence in our families is because they've been traumatized, they've been oppressed, they've been told, don't tell nobody. And so the caregiver struggles to regulate just to be a woman, just nothing else but just to be a woman.
Just a sec.
And the attachment bomb.
Okay, let's hear just be a
Hold on. Thank you. Where did I need to pick up at? I was on mute for a second.
Just with the caregiver struggles to regulate and then that attachment bond.
Okay. The attachment relationship between the caregiver and the child may be strained. Even though you first had a child, that's the most intimate time for the serve and return. You have to set the neural networks. So a lot of us don't understand how genetics work. And so hopefully when we get to epigenetics, I can explain this a little bit better to you. But the development of a core sense of self happens during those intimate moments. And so facial perception is huge with children. That's how they learn, is from their parents. And so if you're not in the face of your child, if you're not nurturing that child, then nature gets a hold to that child. And that be that what's ever running through that room, the child's eyes is going to focus on that. So a lot of that would entail with this domestication. When we flip back to the main street and the trees, I don't see any child care in there. I don't see any information. And so we send people to treatment nowadays for what? Because the mom was oppressed and she didn't have the information. We were born in America. We never had a chance to be raised. I see some people with startled eyes, but you have to remember, I experienced this. I lived in this maternal depression, and then the emotional and sexual abuse and the substance abuse and the domestic violence and the homelessness and the incarceration and the mental illness. We don't really have mental illness problems. We have domestication problems. Mental illness happened because the domestication wasn't fair, it wasn't equal. And so when you don't give people equal pay down here in the environments and you also discriminate against them and all they was doing was just trying to live, then this allows the development of a core sense of self. So the child never has a core sense of self or ability to integrate experiences. And then there's the epigenetic expressions. So in adulthood, a person who has a caregiver with untreated trauma may be more prone to PTSD after trauma. And we look at people in the community and we wonder what's wrong with them. Their domestication. Look at how many generations that European side of the family they can actually trace back to. Does that make any sense? It says a struggle to repair after conflict, struggle with relationships, bringing out negative behaviors in others, emotionally detached, more prone to disassociate. How can you capture a child's attention? How can you capture a man's attention? A lot of our stuff is ingrained in us, you guys, and we don't even know it there. Next slide.
So this information here, I'll go ahead and read to us, and then you're welcome to read along as well. This comes from the book Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome by Dr. Joy DeGroy, and it's an excerpt that's at the beginning of her book that we felt was very relevant. Among the most accomplished and fabled tribes of Africa, no tribe was considered to have warriors more fearsome or more intelligent than the mighty Maasai. It is perhaps surprising, then, to learn the traditional greeting that passed between Maasai warriors. Kaserian Ingera, one would always say to another. It means, and how are the children? It is still the traditional greeting among the Maasai, acknowledging the high value that the Maasai always place on their children's well-being. Even warriors with no children of their own would always give the traditional answer, all the children are well. Meaning, of course, that peace and safety prevail, that the priorities of protecting the young, the powerless are in place, that Maasai society has not forgotten its reason for being, its proper functions and responsibilities. All the children are well means that life is good. It means that the daily struggles for existence do not preclude proper caring for their young. I wonder how it might affect our consciousness of our own children's welfare if, in our culture, we took to greeting each other with this daily question, and how are the children? I wonder if we heard that question and passed it along to each other a dozen times a day, if it would begin to make a difference in the reality of how children are thought of or cared about in our own country. I wonder if every adult among us, parent and non-parent alike, felt an equal weight for the daily care and protection of all the children in our community, in our town, in our state, in our country. I wonder if we could truly say without any hesitation, the children are well. Yes, all the children are well. And Alfred, can you share with us how this excerpt relates to resiliency and then also the concept of Sankofa?
Resiliency is the key word here, because really the depth of this town hall today is really talking about and discussing neuroscience, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, and resiliency. And so for me, the Sankofa bird, which is actually an African word from the Akan tribe in Ghana, the literal translation of the word and the symbol, it is not taboo to fetch what is at risk of being left behind. The Sankofa bird is part of our logo to express the need for us to reclaim our past in order to move forward toward our future. It is understanding who we were that will free us to embrace who we are now. And that's very important. When we go to our next slide, when we talk about trauma and social location, Melissa, okay. We're also going to be discussing adverse childhood experiences and historical trauma and embodiment. And you guys wonder, why am I talking about this? Well, today, as a matter of fact, 2 years ago in 2018, I was diagnosed with liver cancer, and I was told that I would need a liver transplant. And so when I got that diagnosis, I went and got a second opinion. And when I went and got the second opinion, they told me that I needed a liver transplant. And what I didn't know was actually, it was my childhood that was coming back alive in me. Veronica Mead, with chronic illness trauma studies, her ACE questionnaire and her chronic illness stats was instrumental in getting me to find doctors who is actually willing to start listening to why I was so ill. After my initial diagnosis with cancer and I had the radiation, then I started feeling chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, and which turned into be having IBS also. If I hadn't been able to bring in the documentation into the doctors, they would have never known anything about ACEs, nor about how adverse childhood experiences cause our top 3 behaviors in this pyramid: adoption of health and risk behaviors, disease, disability, and social problems, and early death. That comes from the environment. And this also causes social and emotional and cognitive impairment. And all this happens because of our neurological development during the ages from 1 to 5. Adverse childhood experiences happens at conception, actually at conception. So that means in the mother's womb it happens, depending upon the environment that you're born in. And so that also leads to early death. When we look to the other side, to the right-hand side, we'll see microaggressions, implicit bias, microaggressions, and those are what Donna Jackson Nakasawa calls cuts. They're the everyday verbal, nonverbal, environmental slights, snubs, or insults, whether intentional or unintentional, which communicate hostile, derogatory, and negative messages to target persons based solely upon their marginalized group membership. So when you look at the groups in the neighborhoods and the communities you grew up, that's racism, that's institutional racism. Implicit bias, also known as unconscious or hidden bias. Implicit biases are negative associations that people unknowingly hold. They are expressed automatically without conscious awareness. Many studies have indicated that implicit biases affect individuals' attitudes and actions, thus creating real-world implications, even though individuals may not even be aware that those biases exist within themselves. Notably, implicit biases have been shown to trump individuals' stated commitments to equality and fairness, thereby producing behavior that diverges from the explicit attitudes that many people profess. The implicit association test is often used to measure implicit biases with regard to race, gender, sexual orientation, age, and religion, and other topics. According to Harvard's Center on Developing Children, epigenetics is an emerging science of scientific research that shows how environmental influences children experiences actually affect the expression of their genes. This means the old idea that genes are set in stone has been disproven. Nature versus nurture is no longer a debate. It's nearly always both.
And Alfred, can you kind of share with these two pyramids between the left and the right, the additional information on the bottom, trauma and social location? Can you just give us a little bit more context about that, what the difference is between these two pyramids?
Okay, so trauma and social location, social conditions and local context means what neighborhood, what environment you're living in at that particular time. Environment could be whatever family or whatever community you live in. It doesn't necessarily mean that you might be in your primary family of origin. A lot of us are just virtually nomads living amongst other families of color. And so the generational embodiment and the historical trauma, that comes from slavery. That comes from the Native Americans. It comes from the African Americans. It comes from the Hispanics. It comes from all communities of colors who's been oppressed because of racism. It's especially systemic racism. When you look at your right-hand screen here, the microaggressions and implicit biases in epigenetics. Epigenetics really, you guys, means that the environment has now entered underneath the skin of our community. And so we keep talking about we're human beings. No, we're mammals. We're living organisms who adapt to the environment. And so the environment and ACEs are huge factors. So if the land is not accepting you, and the environment that you're living in on this land is not accepting you, and the people who are in charge of the land are not accepting you, then therefore you have early death, disease and disability, social problems, adoption of health risk behaviors. That could be sexual, the health risk behaviors. That could be self-medicating on opiates, meth, cigarettes, coffee. So a lot of us, even though we say, oh, it's not me, a lot of us have some habits in our life daily. And also in our social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. You go to work and you let people oppress you just for a paycheck. And so if you're not standing up to this, you're not standing up to being alive. You need to represent not only your race, but you need to actually represent your gender first. And then also when it talks about on the right-hand side, the burden of disease, distress, criminalization, and stigmatization, no matter what color, no matter what age you are, that burden of disease, now that I'm 66 years old and I have liver cancer and fibromyalgia, I live in a constant state of brain fog. I live in a constant state of tiredness. When all this came from my childhood and my adverse childhood experiences in my relationship, and I don't want to blame my mom. I used to blame my mom a lot. If it wasn't for the fact that I spent 2 years in Seattle's Union Gospel Mission behavior modification treatment program, I wouldn't even have the clarity to be able to excel in this research, to be able to talk to you guys today about this. This devastated my life. And it wasn't because of my mom, it's because of the environment. They wouldn't accept her as a woman trying to move ahead in life. She had to get with a man that was abusive in order to raise us. I don't know how that affected her, but I know she died of cancer, and I know I have cancer. And so that's some worry. You know, depression is the #1 cause of the reason why we're here today. Blacks, minorities of any type of kind, I don't care what fraction you are, we don't deserve to have our neurological development disrupted because of people that are still preying on us. And when I'm talking about preying on us, you look at Microsoft, you look at some of these, and Facebook and Google, and look at and Amazon, and look at amounts of money that they have. And the first thing they want to say, let's send them to treatment. Let's send them to treatment. You know, treatment, that's a silo. There's no culturally driven treatment agencies around here that have residential programs, centers of excellence. So that's what we're talking about, environment. We want to be free. We didn't grow up, it's 1965, I remember that, when blacks were able to vote. It's not even 100 years. We got our younger generation looking at the older people of color and asking us what happened. When I was a kid, we was getting $1.25 an hour. What do you think happened? You know, they never empowered us. So therefore, we have an allostatic load, disrupted neurological development, complex trauma. That's like having too many eyes on in the stove at once, and something in the oven and something else in the microwave, and then you're trying to cook on top of the refrigerator. You know, so social conditions and local context. Look at Seattle, the richest city almost on the planet, and we're broke. There should be no homelessness. Seniors shouldn't have to pay rent. I can't believe the oppression that they put on seniors in healthcare. So this social condition, the local context, the general embodiment of a historical trauma. There's a reference. If you guys have a problem with general embodiment and historical trauma, read Joy DeGroove's book on post-traumatic slave syndrome. There's a clip I asked Melissa to put on there, and I've asked other people in the community to read, to take a look at it. But look at Howard Zinn's A History of the United States. It's 100 years ago. We're actually doing the same. We're living the same way. The same thing we're talking about, living price, the cost of living. That's the same thing they was fighting about 100 years ago. Next, Melissa, please.
Yeah, thank you. And I did put the title of that book that Alfred also referenced again in the chat. And I just wanted to mention that the recording will be sent out to everyone, as well as a copy of the slides. And so you'll have access to our references page as well that includes a lot of the things that we're talking about here.
And I want to add on to that some of you guys are professionals. I'm not going to come to you in iambic pentameter of clear verse and voice today. You know, I'm a damaged goods. I'm lucky to be above ground. I've been pistol whipped. I've been stabbed. I've been hit in the head with hammers and 2x4s. I've had my jaw broke 4 or 5 times. My vagus nerve is on whack. And so I'm working on my vagal tone. And some of us that don't experience living, we don't understand that, because that's not part of our domestication, you guys, because we don't have enough money to be domesticated, you know, because that's what yoga is all about. You know, that's what those Asian and sciences is about, acupuncture is about, you know, then that's self-regulation. And so unless we learn how to self-regulate, we're going to have early death. We're going to have disease, disability, and social problems. Why do you think they have doctors instead of healers? You don't need to go to a medical practice, right? That's what they used to call doctors, you guys, before they went into these silos, you know, called hospitals. They call them medical practices. We need functional medicine doctors, or what they call nowadays naturopathic doctors. We need to regulate our own bodies. We need to stop letting that regulate us. The matrix is alive, you guys. The adoption of health risk behaviors, the social, emotional, cognitive impairment, and the disrupted neurodevelopment, all that has been programmed into us, you guys. It's called the setup. It's the underlay for the overplay. Because we've been oppressed, we wasn't able to carry our culture with us. Actually, English is our second language. We don't know our first language. And there's another thing, you guys. We eating all the worst kind of food. All the food that comes out of the kitchen and stuff is not necessarily good for you. I'm a cancer survivor now, you guys. I juice and I eat organic everything. If I don't know the history of the food, I'm not eating it. You need to look at all the products you put on, because you guys are living in a false narrative. The ACE study is actually the foundation for the Black Lives Matter movement. The ACE study is the foundation for institutional racism, why we need to eradicate it in the community. And you see right here, the ACE study has been telling you that it's been going on intergenerationally. And it's so cool now, they call it historical trauma. How dare them? How dare them? All we came here for was to live, you know, and it's a shame for the Black communities, because as we turn over and we start talking about historical trauma, the shift here, you guys, is knowing my value. When the doctor told me after I got done with the radiation procedures for my liver cancer, I asked the doctor, I said, so what's your continuum of care? What do I do next so I can keep healing and get well? You know, he didn't have nothing for me. He said, looked at me, he said, what do you mean? You need to go see another doctor. A doctor? You know, so historical trauma is an example of intergenerational trauma, you guys. It's caused by events that target a large group of people. This happened during the same time as what happened in Germany. Thus, even family members who've not directly experienced the trauma can feel the effects of the event generations later. And that's when we talk about the Jewish community. And then Dr. Maria Yellowhorse Braveheart, PhD, conceptualized historic trauma in the 1980s as a way to develop a stronger understanding of why life for many Native Americans is not fulfilling the American dream. It's not fulfilling anybody's dream. And then when we talk about post-traumatic slave syndrome by Dr. Joy McGrew, it's a condition that exists as a consequence of centuries of chattel slavery followed by institutional racism and oppression that resulted in multi-generation adaptive behavior, meaning that we adopted to this behavior. The environment called us to adopt it and adapt to the behavior. Some positive reflecting, resilience, and others that are harmful and destructive. The theory of PTSS was developed by Dr. DeGru as a result of 12 years of quantitative and qualitative research. So if you guys are not doing any quantitative and qualitative research in your lives and how you got here, and it's the reason why you need to know your DNA and all your health disparities, and that's the reason why historical and lived trauma, next slide, please. Next slide, please. Okay, there we go. So historical and lived trauma. Since the time the first slaves arrived, and so we got some notes on here so you guys can catch the depth of this, because this is really important. Since the time the first slaves arrived in the Americas from Africa in the early 1500s to the present day, and listen to this, Europeans and their descendants have gone to great lengths to justify the 500 years of trauma and dehumanize them, and their institutions proceeded. The effects of this trauma and the dehumanization are observable today and can be explained by the theory of post-traumatic slave syndrome. So this is happening to everybody of color everywhere. They just didn't stop with blacks, they started with blacks. And now it's migrated into the poor white community. Y'all didn't hear me. But I said now it is migrated in the poor white communities. And the reason why is because of the meth and the heroin. It's the same thing with the crack epidemic. We're going to get all this. We didn't manufacture crack. Cocaine didn't just levitate itself and move to America from out of the fields in Colombia and off the mountains. But we're going to talk more about that when we discuss the Monahan report. And so actually but I want to step back, just go back one. So I want to talk about ghetto and welfare, because this is my time. This is when I was a child. I would have graduated in 1971, but I was a little smart, and so I got out of there in 1970. But I left home at 13, you guys, in high school. It got so bad at my house, you guys. I went to some guy's house I used to hang out. I thought they was cool and stuff. You know, I was trying to have them take pity on me, and I could couch surf. They said, no, you can't stay here tonight. So I spent my first night up on 23rd Avenue and Republican underneath a tree. And the next day I got up and went to school. And it was all the way in the South End, but that's another story. But in 1960, 22% of African-American children lived with single parents. In 1968, it rose to 31%. In 2011, it doubled to 64%. And now today, it's currently at 72%. The welfare rules back in 1968 to 1975 was no adult men in the house. So those who lived in the projects, the women, couldn't have no adult men in the house. Now that was a federal law. The projects was federal. Now, when you guys start measuring how cool it is and you see people riding up and down in these cars and stuff and how they looked at us and stuff, Remember this, decreased in low educational industrial manufacturing jobs. So now there's no employment. Drugs, crime, and family disintegration, all interrelated, took a heavy toll on the inhabitants of the inner city. That's what Marvin Gaye was talking about, inner city blues. The exodus of jobs and middle class. Now see, but you guys, we don't know this, but in 1965, the Moynihan Report on the next slide, is Moynihan, there you go, the Moynihan, he originally published, he was a sociologist, that's ones who studied groups of people. And so The Negro Family is a book that wrote. The Case for National Action was written by Daniel Patrick Moynihan, an American sociologist, served as Assistant Secretary of Labor under President Lyndon B. Johnson, the guy that really did more for Black people than some things that's being noted in the community on public and in media today. And that's a whole nother issue, how we can have 3 or 4 channels and they're telling the world about what life is like. And so Black people have never been accepted into the American dream, is what he found out. The matriarchal system does not work within the American Western system, and that's where the mothers rule. A lot of us don't even have enough discernment to even know what the word matriarchal system even means. That's where they've turned women over to be the head of the household. That's the science, you guys. It just didn't happen like that. That's the science, you guys. It just didn't happen like that. Black men must have employment, of what they said. And then he said, repairing the Black family is key. And then when you go and you look and you keep flipping back and you look at historical and live narrative, and it says Europeans and their descendants have gone to greatness to justify the 500 years of trauma and dehumanization. And you switch over here and you see the hyper ghetto and prison generation from 1975 to 1990. It talks about now we got a hyper ghetto, extreme concentration of poverty and underprivileged groups. And you see them on there with the crack pipe. Black and white people use and sell drugs at about the same time, but Black people are 20 times more likely going to jail. If you read the book Emotional Sobriety by Tion Dayton, which she wrote back in 2008, she tells you that feelings predate thoughts. Feelings predate thoughts. Our cognitive, our prefrontal cortexes don't come online until the age of 12. So from the time we was born, before we was born, we was actually living off of our feelings, you guys. So I left home actually when I was probably 1 year old cognitively. And so, another thing that you remember, and part of this, we're talking about the neuroscience of oppression. We're talking about the epigenetics, or how the environment becomes into our organism, and that's caused our DNA to not to be able to express itself. There's 4 different ways that our body communicates with our brain. And I need to express this to you now. It's the neurological communication, which is our nervous system. It's the biochemical communication, or hormones. It's the biophysical communication, or pulse waves. It's the energetic communication, electromagnetic fields. Yes, I said electromagnetic fields, you guys. And so I'm just going to give you guys a real skinny, and then they talk about drugs have major impact on women and children. Yeah, because every man wants to be around a woman. They're also too late. I got to give you credit, you know what I mean? I got to give you credit, because the real deal is that we didn't get enough information to even understand that the white matter underneath that thin layer of gray matter that we call our brain, that the women have 20 times more white matter, or axons, cables, connecting to their brain than men do. So men, do your research. Really do your research. That's the reason why you like women. That's the reason why they wear pretty clothes. That's the reason why they're creative. That's the reason why you let them hang pictures up and hang things up. And that's the reason why we like looking at them. They're more resilient than us, because in actuality, if you read Tion Dayton's book, you'll never find out, but it was the women that saved the children. The men would eat them. The men would eat them, because men are more lazier than women. If it wasn't for women, it would be a bad place to live in, you guys. And so therefore also we had the concentrated police presence in our communities in 1975. Let's go to our next slide where we talk about institutionalized generation. That happened from 1985 until now. In actuality, you guys, we're institutionalized. How? It says it right here. General development, the general generation developed after the crack era, born from the mid-1980s to the present. Did you hear me? Born from the mid-90s. So they haven't changed the program since the 1980s to the present. But you guys haven't did nothing. You've been going along, man, letting them slap you upside the head and like take your stuff, take your houses. They took my house in 2008. And I had just came out of the penitentiary, in 2004, you guys. And that was only 9 days out of prison. I swallowed a quarter ounce of crack cocaine and died and was paralyzed. And in 2008, me and my girlfriend, we was moving into a 5-bedroom house. So I know that we can do things. Don't believe the hype. Enriched with service providers external to the family members. So since 1985 till now, these healthcare disparities have created silos. They have been siphoning off the money from our community through Medicaid and Medicare through places that we can't even penetrate. And that's what's causing the healthcare disparities. We can't even get in. Where are they training Black and people of color at doesn't cost the $1 million or more. My education cost me $179,000. And was it education or was it some information? Now you discern that. And so creating an inferiority and independent culture. So what we have now is what they created, an inferiority and dependent culture. And we're dependent on things that make us feel good. And now they got apps, they got Facebook, they got Instagram, they got Twitter, they got TikTok, And so it talks about the element of internalized oppression and an extreme level of learned helplessness. And that's what we're running on today, folks. And what are the examples? Look at the child protection. That's federal. Foster care, welfare social work, juvenile corrections, industrial prison complex. I got paid 25 cents an hour and was grateful in the penitentiary, you guys. So when we go to the next one, it says, so what are we seeing now? The new Jim Crow, high numbers of mass incarceration, both males and increasingly females. Orange is the new black, anyone? Help not needed, high levels of unemployment, especially in the lower bottom. They didn't have a place to live. I moved so many times I can't remember. I've been in so many treatment places I don't remember. I'm the guy that an OD'd, probably 10 times downtown. I'm a high chronic utilizer of public funds. And then they talk about ADHD, damn, high number of Black child being overdiagnosed with ADHD and ODD. Look at the products that they're eating and look what they're being around. Look at the environments they're growing up. In the worst of worst places. Lucky we didn't live in Beirut because we'd have been the ones living over that chemical that blew up. And you need to ask yourself, are you in close proximity to one now? I remember when I was a kid, down the street from my house was a landfill. We used to go down there and light matches. And now they call it, anyway, we don't want to talk about. We talk about throwaway children, high levels of children in foster care. Can you imagine that? Why would you leave your children? Why would you leave your family? Because the house is on fire and the roof too. And then they're talking about adoption, transitional housing. Do you know how that makes you feel inside when you don't have a place to live, where you're not safe? When you're not safe, where there's no trustworthiness and transparency, where there's no peer support and mutual self-help, there's no collaboration and mutuality, there's no empowerment, there's no voice and choice, and our cultural, historical, and gender issues are at stake. And then it talks about the fragile family dynamics. Well, who created the fragile family dynamics? Who's in charge? You're Europeans. Everybody is somewhere other than home. Why? Why are we so oppressed that we can't even stay home long enough to say, we love you? We don't know what love is because we think love is feelings. We think love is sex, but no, we got the information wrong. No, we didn't get no information. No, we got the information wrong. And so the next slide, because I know we're coming up on our hour, I need to talk about shifting my narrative to knowing my value, you guys. And so what I did was I looked at the pyramid from a different perspective. And the perspective is the intergenerational historical trauma. I need to investigate that. I need to talk to Alfred. I need to come and get on Alfred's classes, because this, you guys, is a class. What we're creating here is called a culturally driven. Did you hear what I said? We're getting rid of them silos, a culturally driven center of excellence. And that center of excellence will be a coordinated care for people with Medicaid. And the treatment is team-based. I don't like to say the treatment. I'm going to tell you that the domestication is going to be team-based and whole person focused, with the explicit goal of integrating behavioral health and primary care together. In the center of excellent patients, they'll have an opiate disorder, they'll have a meth disorder, they'll have a disorder, but they'll be able to come in and we'll use Medicaid to fund them. And they may have co-occurring behavioral and physical and health conditions, but we'll help them to navigate the care system to stay engaged in their domestication, not calling it treatment no more. Because we got adverse childhood experiences, we need a host of services. So we're going to have comprehensive care management, care coordination, transitional and follow-up care. So we're talking about from the pediatrics to the geriatrics, you know, and we're also going to have patient and family support. That's that wraparound services, and they'll be peer and culturally relevant, culturally driven based. And also we're going to have referral to community and social support services that look more like us. Our Center of Excellence team will have healthcare providers, family members, and we're going to include community-based navigators, food, housing, and jobs. So we can get through these adverse childhood experiences so we can stay focused on our disruptive neurodevelopment, and our social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. And then the adoption of health risk behaviors. If we can't teach each other, we can't treat each other. There's no sense going out with somebody if you ain't talking to them from this level here of love. Disease, disability, and social problems. You guys need to start having real conversations with each other, embrace each other. If not, you're going to have early death. You're going to be feeling like I'm feeling right now. Every day it's a battle just to get up, you guys. Every day it's a battle just to cook a meal. You know, and I'm saying something about the seniors. We really, they have more wealth in our senior citizens than any other place in America. There's more living in our seniors. Sit down with a senior today. When you're walking out there, young man or young woman or whatever gender that you pronounce, have some respect, wear a mask. Have some respect, wear a mask. You don't know where that intergenerational trauma came from. You don't know their fight. You don't know their adverse childhood experiences. Disruptive neurodevelopment is what I'm talking about, is that white matter and that gray matter that's underneath that thing that you call a wig or your hair, you know, and then who you are as an individual, your character is your social, emotional, and cognitive impairment. We need to work on our social and emotional IQ, you guys. And then the adoption of health risk behavior. Stop listen to slogans and rap songs and Mac songs and stuff, and listen to some science. So as we keep shifting the narrative, I want you guys to really look at this, to know your value, to find out who you really are, not who you think you are. And so the call to action and storytelling and listening is telling our stories can be redemptive. And this is by Dr. Joy DeGruy, you guys. We're getting ready to close this down. It's a call to action, storytelling and listening. Telling our stories can be redemptive. You know, my street name was Old School, you guys. Yeah, I've been in a lot of those type of buses where the SWAT team came and kicked the door down. That happened in Frisco, that happened in Vegas, that happened in Seattle. Yeah, I've been stabbed. You know what I mean? I'm the guy that you see standing out there on the street downtown that was nodding so hard. You say, wow, man, he might break his nose. Yeah, I did break my nose. I'm the guy that happened to, too. You know, and then having 2 black eyes, and you don't want to tell people what happened. But our stories hold life in them. Telling our stories can free us. Telling our stories can help lift others up. I believe an integral part of racial socialization, hear what I said, racial socialization is learning the histories of those in our family and community. Storytelling is an important part of our education. It strengthens us. It helps us build resilience. We, the elders, have only to speak. We owe it to the younger generation to tell our stories and encourage them to tell their own. By so doing, we will build continuity across the generations, and with greater continuity will come a growing understanding of and confidence in our power to survive, overcome, and flourish. And so how do we make this call to action? Well, the call to action is to know your value. And so we'll look at the wheel, and we'll talk about our mind, our emotions, our body, and our spirit.
Yeah, and as we move into the second call to action in terms of knowing your value, I know we've had a few questions come in the chat that we'll address as we move into the open forum in just a moment. But we also wanted to take a minute to connect this to Indigenous teachings as well. And medicine wheels can have a variety of meanings. And one understanding offers us that medicine wheels represent what you see here. So the mind, the emotions, the spirit, and the body. And it being in the circle shape represents the interconnectivity of all aspects of one's being, including the connection with the natural world. Medicine wheels are frequently believed to be the circle of awareness of the individual self, the circle of knowledge that provides the power we each have over our own lives. Medicine wheels are a sacred part of that Indigenous culture. And so, Alfred, as we close here with this call to action of knowing your value, can you kind of connect how knowing your value relates to the pieces of the medicine wheel here?
Well, I want to really say something here and really make this hit home that early and this is really important to our call to action and know our value. Early adverse childhood experiences like trauma impact our neurobiology. And that's our thinking part of our brains. And it's talking about trauma, abuse, maltreatment can alter our brain structure, brain function, and the neurobiological stress response system. Because what gets hijacked is our fight or flight system. And this also talks about the more ACEs experience, the greater the likelihood of developmental delays. Did you hear what I said? Developmental delays and later health problems, including heart disease, diabetes, substance abuse, and depression. And then not all ACEs are bad or damaging to a child's development. Only the ACEs that result in toxic stress are bad. A toxic stress response can occur when a child experiences strong, frequent, and or prolonged adversity, such as physical or emotional abuse, chronic neglect, caregiver substance abuse, or mental illness, exposure to violence, and or the accumulated burdens of family economic hardships. So this COVID-19 is killing us. It's something that they'll never, ever, ever forget. It's going to be in our epigenetics, in our DNA, without adequate adult support. So providers who are on here, if you guys want to be really part of preventing this, you got to be an adult and really know what's at stake here. Not everybody wants to hear a white opinion nowadays. Sometimes the addicts that you have inside your sessions, and I don't want to call them addict because I'm an addict. We're all addicts. Look at your cell phone and you'll know you're an addict. You know what I mean? Check your bank account on Friday. You'll know you're an addict. So stop acting like that, Joe, they're just the homeless people that are addicts. You know what I mean? You just took paychecks and from being homeless yourself. This kind of prolonged activation of stress response system can disrupt the development of brain architecture and other organ systems, you guys. And that's where the vagus nerve comes in. But that's a whole nother conversation for y'all, because the doctors won't want to tell you about it. Write that down. And increase the risk for stress-related disease and cognitive impairment across the lifespan. So listen, you guys, the Europeans know through science what was going to happen before you was born. This is the underlay for the overplay. When toxic stress response occurs continually, it can have a cumulative toll on the individual's physical and mental health for a lifetime. Did you hear me? What they did in a kid in the womb in early development, they knew can cross a lifetime. And so research also indicates that supportive, responsive relationships with caring adults. You'd be amazed who's a caring adult. You know, I see somebody on the screen here that's actually a caring adult. They didn't know how they was taking care of me. You know, they listened to me rant, but they was actually providing me with therapy, you know. And early in life can prevent or reverse the damaging effects of the toxic stress response. Toxic stress is prolonged activation of stress response systems. It's not what you're thinking about. Stop thinking. This stuff is in your body. It's not in your head, baby. That's what epigenetics is all about. You can, well, I can think my way out of this. With what, your mind? And so it says, first of all, are you able to be truthful and honest about how you're doing now? Come on now. Help me with that one. Huh? In your mind. How many people in your mind with you? And then we're talking about emotions. Can you be brave about who you are and the gifts you have to share? What? Emotions? I don't even know the difference between feelings, you know, or if it's a flirt or what. You know, my retro staff, some of y'all don't know what that means. That retro staff, that's that feeling thermometer, would tell you, but that's some other stuff for whole nother class. I couldn't charge you for this. This is information, man. You guys need to stop going to treatment and start going to class. They'll never get this resolved one at a time, you guys. Now that is a big underlay for an overplay. You know what I mean? So join our class. Spirit, what or who could help you bring a more joyful spirit to work? You know, so guess what? If you don't know who you are because your mind's playing tricks on you because of your domestication and because of them tricky cats that's running the dream of the planet. Yeah, I'm talking about them cats behind. Remember when you watched The Wizard of Oz? And then they followed the little dog and pulled the wizard from behind. And he was standing on the stool. Guess what, you guys? That's the same show video going on right now, man. I don't know how many people it takes, man, in order to be able to do a TV show, man. But that's the script, y'all, dummies. That's the script. That's the script. They might have took 50 dummies to create that script, man. Come on now. And they people, they getting paid. And we can lie better than them, right? We funnier than they are, you know. And then it talks about the body. What do you need to be your best at work? Well, how about, you know, some food? How about a place to live without every 30 days y'all talking about, man, I need some money. You know what I mean? You guys stole our inheritance. You're riding around in it now. You built every building in America off our money. We just want our reparations. This is really the ACE study. Impact is the reason why Black Lives Matter. It's the reason why we got to get rid of institutional racism. It's the reason why every European that's on here need to tell another European about what Alfred is talking about, because we tired of suffering, you guys. We tired of suffering. And so as we get ready to go into the question and answer period, I want to share something with you that during my convalescence from liver cancer, you guys, in 2019, me and my business partner, we bought 1.5 acres in South King County, Washington, with the intent, what my intent was to create a culturally driven residential center of excellence. And we're seeking community support now because this stuff has been done in silos and we can't enter in. We don't even have access. All I wanted to do was be able to give back to drug court. I wanted to be able to go in and help drug court because I'm a graduate of drug court. I wanted to be able to go and help Seattle's Union Gospel Mission and tell them, man, look what you can do. Look what you can do. You know, and so I went, and they wouldn't let me even be a part of it. So we have 1.5 acres of commercial property in South King County that we wanted to turn into a Black, brown, indigenous, and other communities of color residential center of excellence, where we have the domestication lab on the bottom. You hear what I'm saying? And I'm talking about that behavioral health component that I just shared with you guys about the doctors and the social services. Because if you don't work on your body, you'll never be able to work on your mind. And if you don't work on your mind, you'll never learn how to work on your emotions. And if you don't work on your emotions, you'll never even know that there's spirit there exists. So hopefully you guys stick around and ask some questions. What's even better is I hope that you guys sign up for the League of Extraordinary People, because we invite Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other people of color to share their stories and lived experiences on our platform. We also invite them for classes. I'm going to be starting a class on emotional sobriety, and we're going to do the journal, and that's by Tion Dayton. We're also going to be doing a book called Complex PTSD, and that's also a workbook. And then also, too, you guys know I'm a psychotherapist, and it means that I do mind, body, and spirit work. And that means the whole person. So when you come in and meet with me, we'll be using the ACE questionnaire, the resilient questionnaire. We'll have a lot of tools, we'll have a lot of fun, but it's not a treatment program, this is an information program. And you take it from a subject matter expert. I've been to the penitentiary. I've been in every jailhouse on the West Coast. I've been up in Vancouver, Canada, stomping the grounds of Gabriel Maté up there in Hastings, you know, in Chinatown. You know, I didn't shot dope and smoke crack, and I didn't did every type of flip. I've worked in the Bering Sea on a fishing boat, trying to resurrect my fast lifestyle, you know, with some quick money. None of that abracadabra stuff worked, you guys. Take the slow boat to China, because you'll learn more. You know, so as we turn this session over to the questions, Melissa, you want to take it over now?
Yes, so we want to thank everyone for joining us today. Is my audio okay for you? Real quick.
You're rough.
Yeah, is this better now? It's coming back.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, we want to thank everyone for joining us for our first hour together this afternoon. And we did receive a question in the chat that I wanted to address, Alfred, really quickly for just a little bit of additional clarification. And then if folks have other questions for Alfred, you're welcome to share those with us during this next time, but also during this last piece here, we really want to invite people who are attending today who are Black, Brown, Indigenous, and other people of color to share your stories and lived experiences, really trying to create the platform as that first call to action showed, of telling your stories and then also the opportunity to listen to each other. So just briefly, Alfred, could you elaborate on the comments that you were making about the white matter in the brain and how that's related to some of what we talked about today?
That's a deep conversation. They need to really come to another class, you know, because that's what's wrong with us. We went impulsive. What's going on is that the neurodevelopment wasn't there because when we was 1 and 2 years old, the neural platform wasn't laid out. The grid wasn't laid out. So, I think it's age 6 to do some pruning in there. And so if you don't use it, you lose it. And so that's what I'm talking about. So it's the connections, and the white matter is the axons or the connections with the brain matter. They're the ones that carry the neurotransmitters, which carry the signals to the other parts of our communication system. When I started out earlier and I told you that our neurological communication is our nervous system, our biological communication is our hormone system, and that's the HPA axis. Our biophysical communication are pulse waves, and our energetic communication is electromagnetic fields. See, there's a lot of information they never even explained to you during your domestication. So what I'm really talking about is education is WAP too. The education is bunk. You got to throw out the whole baby with the bathwater with this, you guys. And so they really don't like people like me speaking to this, but now that I got a master's, you know what I mean? I can speak like I want to speak, because even with a master's, I couldn't go get a job. I had to start a business. And then when you start a business like we're talking about, we want to be a part of this healthcare movement, and we want to do housing, and we want to do domestication. So we want to reacclimate people to a program that's culturally driven. How come I got to go to your house and you're white and you got to teach me about your culture and stuff and think that I'm supposed to adapt to that? You know, me and Melissa had a conversation about this morning. You know, I said, the voice is mine. You know, it's me. It's me, you know, that's lived this experience, you know. And so I know you mean well, but I can't listen to you. Just let me free flow. Let me do my rap. You know what I mean? You know, because we all qualify for a rap. You know, I've been here and there. You know, I've been everywhere. You know, I've been to the what's that? The yacht boat races in Newport. I forget what that's called. But I've been to the fights in Las Vegas. You know, I've been through all that stuff. None of that's just all meaningless, like they say in the Bible. And really, that's what it's all about. But you guys will really find out at the other side of this, if you really stay in this long enough, that there's a power greater than ourselves that created us. And his spirit is inside you. And so, and you can call it your conscious. You can, some of you guys got different names for it, but that's real. And so the power greater than ourselves is what restores us to sanity. And really, I almost started out with the set-aside prayer for this whole presentation today. You know, it's funny, we got over 200 people that registered for this, but are people ready for the truth? Are they ready to come alongside of a Black organization who bought some land so they could create housing for the homeless and those with complex needs? They're not, people stop saying they're homeless. They're not homeless. You know what I mean? You guys planned this. Now, you didn't hear me though, huh? You guys planned this. How can a person have billions of dollars and see the homeless? And then you stop asking people what, you know, and start talking to them and really say, I really want to go to a place that really cares about me, that really shows me love. We're going to take, if we get the right development, project development people, the right communication, the right fundraiser, all I need is you guys to come on board, the League of Extraordinary People. All I need is you guys to join me. We got some land. I got a plan. You got some money. And you got to bring some political, you got to have some swag. So that means you got to have some political clout. I mean, I want to see swag when you come in here. You know what I mean? Because if you playing Russian roulette out there, shooting drugs and smoking cigarettes and drinking coffee, and you think that cup of coffee is going to be the last cup you have, you're highly mistaken. And then they say, oh, that's an old dope fiend. He don't know nothing. Well, they call me old school on the streets. And so this is old school with the new school. You hear me? This is old school with the new school. You know, we got some cheerleaders over here, and I'm rooting for you. I did everything, you guys, so don't even think. And so that's what in Ecclesiastes, when they was talking about ain't nothing new, Solomon said there's nothing new under the sun. I'm at that point in my life that there's nothing new under the sun unless we start loving our family, our people. There's a lot of compassionate people out here, and I'll have a lot of information to share with you guys so that we can overcome this beast. We can house you on top, and we can re-domesticate you on the bottom, and also too we can buy some more land. That's the beauty of it. Help us start this pilot program so we can make a national movement. It's time for culturally driven residential healthcare program, housing for, let's call it this, let's call it a housing for health program for individuals with complex needs. And if they're escaping racism, if they're escaping oppression, if they're escaping homelessness, if they're escaping verbal abuse, domestic violence, come here and see us. Come here and see us. I've experienced everything, you guys. I got 2 holes in my head. One you can see visibly. You know, I've been stabbed. I've been pistol whipped. I've been in jail in every city up and down the West Coast, you know, and I used to call them the honeycomb hideouts. You know what I mean? You know, that's just me. I'm crazy. But anyway, you guys, come join us. Let's make this fun. Let's teach our children what love is about. Let's teach them what compassion is about. Let's teach them why we're really here and why Black lives matter. Because in actuality, all lives matter. All lives matter. In our brain, we have 100 billion neurons or brain cells. Ask yourself, did another human being make that? You guys keep following humans. That's what's wrong. They wrote the script, you guys. You see where we're at in the state of the nation now, right now. So whoever's in charge say, I'm gonna fix y'all. You guys don't want to obey. You know, a lot of people say God, and you freak them out. They go run and hide. Well, when I went to Seattle's Union Gospel Mission, I started out in the bathrooms on my knees cleaning. And I said, okay, I couldn't gravitate to God, but how about some good orderly direction, Alfred? You know what I mean? And from that, you guys, I created one of the most successful continuum of care programs in the 75-year history of a local addiction hospital. So I must have had something up the down staircase, right? So hopefully we can have some questions today so we can open up this conversation. And those who are bashful, just be bashful, but ask the question. Melissa?
Yeah, is my audio coming through okay for you?
It's still breaking up, but
Okay, yeah, it's coming in and out. So at this time, everyone is able to unmute themselves. And so if you do have a question, or if you also want to share your story, because we do want to create that time and that space for anyone that wants to share their stories and lived experiences, to use this as an opportunity if you're interested in that. And then also if folks have questions. We do have 10 minutes left. I really encourage you, if you have the time, to stay for these last 10 minutes. We have a couple more slides with contact information. So if you have the time to be with us, we'd love to have you here with us for this last little bit. So anyone can just unmute and jump in, or type in the chat box if that's your preference.
I'm not bashful. I'll just jump in. I just want to thank you for spending that opportunity. I got on quite late, but what I heard was quite compelling. And my question is are you open to utilizing that model in other places, or is it just specifically the Kent site that you want for this vision? Are you interested in using the vision at other properties potentially in South King County?
oh, of course. And the location is in Federal Way. It's not in Kent. But
Okay.
okay, yeah, Rico, we don't have a problem with this. I'm spreading love. We're spreading, you know, and so I have ministry in my background, so I'm spreading the ministry. I'm a servant today. It's servant leadership. So no, I don't have no attitudes. People look at me, oh, he's an addict and he don't do this, he don't do that. And so we got to stop labeling people. And everybody's been oppressed so much, we got to stop using laws and this is the way it goes. And that's no. You know, everybody is a microorganism of a mammal. And so we do not know what the epigenetics, what the environment, how it's influenced their cognitive abilities. So listen, Rico, man, if you got some ideas, we welcome you to the table.
Well, I'm in. You got me. I joined the church, Pastor. You got me. I'm in.
Thank you.
So I want to thank you, Melissa and Alfred, and those who presented today. I think this was amazing, and it's important. And I think anything I can do to help you grow this audience, because this needs to be done every single week, because I think people are missing something really amazing, and it's important to do it over and over, because it's going to take time for this to catch on to folks, because they don't get it. People don't get the truth like that. I have 35 years in the program, so I hear where you're coming from. You know, I didn't spend as much time in as many spots as you, but I've been in those spots. And I'm not proud of it, but it's a part of my armor today. You understand? So I keep coming back, and it's working for me. I don't know about anybody else, but it's working for me. So I appreciate you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Rico.
You're welcome.
Hi, I'll say something. My name is Monica, and I'm over on the East Coast in Virginia. And I actually am a certified ACEs presenter, and I teach about racial trauma. And I just want to say that I really appreciate everything that you've been through, your storytelling and everything that you're saying. I wrote in the chat that today was like going to church for people who know about mental health and know about ACEs. And you have a tremendous story. So thank you for sharing your story. And thank you for all the work that you're doing. And I'm going to be following you closely and see if there's anything that I can do to help support or join you, because you are amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And Monica, I'm amazing child of God, and we're all amazing child of God, whether it's the God, the G-O-D, or God. Thank you. Any more questions?
I have, this is Mary Gubatayo Hagan. Hi, Melissa, and hi, Alfred. I'm sitting on the beach. It's called Old Man Beach. It's, this is where Chief Seattle comes from. And this was the largest longhouse on the Salish Sea. And it was like 750 feet long, and it was a multi-family dwelling. And today is my only grandson's birthday, and so what you see, those tiny little people on the beach, are mostly my family celebrating his birthday. And it's so wonderful that my my grandchildren who are Suquamish can celebrate where their ancestors have celebrated life from time immemorial. This property passed out of the Suquamish people's hands, and about 20 years ago came back to them. And it's tribal property, but they let other people use it. So there's some non-tribal members also on the beach enjoying the beach. I want to bring the spirit of the ancestors and the original inhabitants to this gathering. And I want to sing a song in my language. I am not Suquamish. I'm Tlingit and Tsimshian and Filipino from Metlakatla, which is close to Ketchikan. So I just want to bring this blessing, and this is a healing song that belongs to me that I want to share with everybody. Oh, Nagwadi. Oh, Nagwadi. Oh, Nagwadi. Oh, Nagwadi. Danki Lusham Dumpty, Shashugwelpsham, Laoshi, Adisugwipen, Biaoshi, Noon Dadamskit, Deal not again, Honagwadi, who? So that land across the way, on the other side of that water, is Bainbridge Island. Some of the most exclusive and elite property on the Salish Sea, mostly white privilege, extremely wealthy, you know. And what you see, this little bit of land right here, just this tiny bit, this is the only thing that belongs to the Suquamish people, you know, right here. And all that you see on the other side and every place else is property that's owned by non-native people. But this is the ancient grounds of the Suquamish people, the people of Chief Seattle, Chief South. And I bring our medicine to you. I bring our songs to you. I bring our love to you. Gunshi stoiksham hawa. Ayo. I'm done.
Thank you so much, Mary, for sharing your song and that space with us.
Mary, thank you. You know, you got me emotional over here. Because I feel it resonating in my spirit, you know, what my ancestors are saying. And I just have to repeat this, you know, about the historical trauma and how it's lived into our spirits. It says, since the time the first slaves arrived in America from Africa in the early 1500s to present day, Europeans and their descendants have gone to great lengths to justify the 500 years of trauma and dehumanization they and their institutions have produced. The effects of this trauma and dehumanization are observable today and can be explained by the theory of post-traumatic slave syndrome. And that's the plan, you guys.
So I want to just say that I'm here and our family's here, and we're dedicated to reclaiming our spirituality, our land, our sovereignty, our religion. You know, we are a new generation of people, and we're growing. And I am confident that all these systems that are evil are going to disappear, and the people of the spirit and the heart and the soul are going to rise again, because that is the prophecy of Chief Seattle. He said the white tide is coming in during his time and the red tide is going out, but the red tide will return and the white tide will go out. And I believe the red tide is all the people of the spirit and the heart and of heaven and of the creator, you know, not just about red people, but about people of the heart. Good, she, thank you.
Thank you, Mary. This is our closing, you guys, and I want to let everybody know that also, not only do we have 1.5 acres in the Federal A area, we also have a triplex that's vacant that's been newly renovated. We have a 5-bedroom, a 4-bedroom, and a 3-bedroom, and they're all newly remodeled, and they have stackable washers and dryers and 2 bathrooms. And so we're looking to master lease it, or if your organization needs housing for your program, we can come to a collaboration. But give us a call, contact me or contact Melissa, and let us know how we can help you or how we can help each other. And if you need any mental health or psychotherapy for any of your clients, any presentations, any classes, any consultations, even if you're a high functioning addict, I work really good with those too, with all those populations, including interventions. So give us a call. All funds that we get are to help us break through the silos of the healthcare disparities so that we can be able to be a viable entity in healing. We want to create resilient communities, centers of healing, so we can focus on our neuroscience, epigenetics, adverse childhood experiences, and especially resiliency. We need to know the story so we can deprogram ourselves and unpack this stuff so we no longer can be institutionalized, oppressed, and stigmatized and labeled. Melissa? You're breaking up again. Melissa, you're breaking up.
Yeah, my audio keeps going out every time we come back to me. Is this any better yet?
Okay, it's a little bit better.
Okay. Running my computer's saying low system resources. But if you found value in this today, if you're interested in supporting our work, you can donate to us through PayPal. And then, like we mentioned, this is being recorded, so it's going to go out to everyone who registered. You are welcome to share it among your networks. And we'll also be sending out the slides which will include the resources and information that Alfred talked about today. So connect with us, reach out to us, and just let us know, how we can support you and create reciprocity as well in this work.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Can you hear me? You see Jody's on here?
I don't think she is right now.
No, she just got off, but she was.